Yeah. What's good, beautiful people? This is Icons and Ideas presents The World According to K. Nellz. As always, the laws of thermodynamics say energy can neither be created nor destroyed but transferred. You know what that means? That means if you got good energy, I need it. That also means if you need good energy, I got it. Got another, of course, dope episode before you today. Just want to talk about a host of topics, cover a range of things that we in pop culture and music and entertainment and all of that, and keep everybody up to speed. So we're gonna rock. We're gonna have a good time as we always do, and we're gonna keep it funky. As always, remember to master the room. You can choose to be a thermostat or a thermometer. A thermometer can only tell you the temperature of the room. A thermostat can change the climate. Let's get to it.
I can make you famous. Come and join the team. Your wish is my command. I can live a dream.
All right, let's talk sports. I'm gonna kick it off. We're gonna talk a little sports. So it's been some news that in the Olympics for 2028, they will have flag football, and with the news that flag football would be a part of the 2028 Olympics, one of the premier United States flag football athletes, a gentleman by the name of, I believe, forgive me if I mispronounce your name, is Housh Doucette. He's Creole, judging by his accent. He's from New Orleans. But he like, yo, when it comes to this flag football thing, you know, I know much respect to the NFL guys, but they can't overlook us that's doing flag football on a national level already. And obviously that was met with criticism and pushback and ridicule. And that's when he doubled down and say, listen, I'm better than Pat Mahomes when it comes to flag football. I would never say anything like that and you know, pat it up. But when it comes to this territory of flag football, and he played quarterback, he played several different positions in 7-on-7 flag football. But obviously with that information coming out, with him speaking so brashly, that's met with a ton of criticism, and rightfully so. But then, you know me, I had to do some research. So I'm like, let me check homie out and see, because you got to have, you know what I mean, a large pair of paws to say that at 5'8", 140 pounds, you better than, is it 2 or 3 times Super Bowl champ? Like, you better than Super Bowl champion Pat Mahomes. That's a tall order. But when I checked out his footage, his highlights, buddy is raw. Listen, he fire. Shout out to everybody out there doing the 7-on-7 flag football. I definitely got to tip my hat to you. I definitely got to say it is. The more research that I do, because I was unaware, I got to keep it 100. I didn't know. What my man say, Shaq say, I was unfamiliar with your game. No, for real. So as I did more research, I started looking at like Mike Vick. Mike Vick was, you know, saying high praise of the same person, Housh Doucette. He was just talking about how raw he was out there on flag football. The flag football all-stars played former NFL all-stars, and I ain't gonna lie, they was doing the former NFL all-stars dirty. Now, granted, some of those guys was not on active rosters at the time of this competition, but nonetheless, these wasn't people that, you know, was slouches. These is the best of the best in the best football league that we know. So these guys do have a leg to stand on. So as it pertains to that, I got to say I was unfamiliar, but now I'm familiar. Salute to Housh Doucette. Salute to everybody that's doing their thing in the 7-on-7 flag football. It's going to be interesting to see how 2028 shape up as it pertains to the Olympics and seeing who they ultimately choose to be on that stage. But my man, Housh said, y'all better make sure that I'm accounted for. All 5'8", 140 pounds. I'm a dog. So we'll see. All right, keep it to the world of sports. It's a kicker that posted a video. I'm sorry, a punter. He posted a video. He made a video pretty much as most people nowadays, they creating some sort of content. He's not currently on the active NFL roster. However, he's trying out for a team. And so as a way to generate a lot of attention and viewership to his platform, he decided that he was going to just start creating content centered around a day in the life of an athlete actively trying to make an NFL roster. So with it, He recently posted a video on his social media platform. In that video, he was trying out for the Commanders as a punter, took you through the whole day from catching the ride share from his house to the facility, or I should say from his hotel. I can't remember hotel or house, but to the facility, training in the facility, eating in the facility, everything, the whole day in the life as a kicker, going through this process. And then ultimately it came to the point where the personnel, the representative from the Commanders came out to him to say, thank you, great job, but no thank you. And that was literally the extent of the conversation. And he ended the video by arriving back home, walking back through the door and being greeted by his daughter. And he was talking about and emphasized, the highlight of his day, although that didn't work out, him still being able to come back home to his family makes everything that he do worth it. Now, wholesome video, wholesome content, but it became controversial when the Commanders reached out to him and say, hey, you got to take that down. And he said pretty much, F you, I'm not taking it down. Then his agent reached out to him saying that the lawyers, the legal for the Commanders said, hey, you have to take this down. To which he said again, F you, I'm not taking it down. And then posted more content centered around it. But the original video was so wholesome that Cam Newton saw it. And he said, I like his ability to tell a story. In a minute and 30 seconds, he took us through the whole emotional roller coaster of starting out at home, arriving to the facility, getting back home, and everything that came with it. Anybody that's creative and can tell stories like that, I want to bring him on to my team. So he actually extended him an offer to work with Iconic Saga, which is Cam Newton's imprint for all of his digital media. Now, I rock with dude, touching story, all of that good stuff, but this is where I got to keep it 100. In the video, when my man was at the Commander's facility and he was showing the food, he grabbed a banana and he ate an undressed banana. I never seen no shit like this in my life. My man ain't peeled nothing. He grabbed the banana, bit it, and began chewing. And so at first I thought it was a glitch or something. So me being me, I had to go back and watch it. And watched it like, he was wilding. Then I went to another video on his page, same thing. He got some sort of fetish banana fetish, pause. Like, cause in every other video, my man got a banana and he raw dogging a banana fully clothed. My man ain't peel it. My man ain't break it off or nothing. My man is taking a whole banana. This type of savagery needs to be arrested. This man needs to be behind bars for eating fully clothed bananas. So your story was beautiful. I wish you nothing but success in your endeavors, but I have to encourage you to stop eating fully clothed bananas because that's wild egregious. Keeping it moving right along. So as always, it's not going to be the world according to Nellz if we don't talk about something pertaining to the social landscape. Dr. Umar, polarizing, controversial, all of those adjectives you name. He was recently on a podcast, and the conversation was a debate around hip hop, and it got intense, it got heated. It was a lot of raised voices, a lot of elevated tones, but the concept and the principle that they was talking about, I wanted to bring it to my audience and my platform. So it's centered around a simple question or a simple idea. Has hip hop done enough for the Black community from an institutional standpoint? Dr. Umar's position is, given the amount of affluence, influence, and wealth that hip hop has afforded the Black community, there are no schools, there are no grocery stores, there are no hospitals, there are no doctor's offices, and so on and so forth. Institutions, there are no banks. He talked about real institutions that's instrumental in community building. They talk about it from the lens of the gentleman that was on a podcast with him was speaking to the fact that I'm not going to throw the baby away with the bathwater. although a lot of hip hop is problematic, and this whole set, he's on record talking about how much accountability that hip hop must take for a lot of the narratives, for a lot of the conversations and things like that. He's not just going to dismiss all hip hop and say all hip hop is bad. And there became a conversation about the distinction. How do you delineate between hip hop and rap? On one end, they're saying hip hop is the culture and rap is the business. The guy then began to make a point that you can't own hip hop, because Umar's position was black people don't even own hip hop. Hip hop is owned by the Jewish people, based on what Umar was talking about. With that being said, he was like, the guy rebuttal saying you can't own hip hop because hip hop is the culture. Now you can own the business of music. However, the culture of hip hop will always belong to the souls of the people that created it. Keeping to that theme and keeping that in mind, it brings an interesting conversation. So I started to think from an institutional standpoint, when we talk about the hip hop community as a whole, it's very important that we ask, why are there no banks? Why are there no hospitals? Why are there no schools and curriculums, etc.? Why haven't we been able to pool our resources to be able to effectively create the institutions that's going to be instrumental in helping us thrive as a community? Now, when you ask that question, you have to be transparent if you have to be real. One thing that I'm going to encourage everybody to do is know your history. History is the greatest teacher. So let's look at the history of the African American community, specifically in America. When we look at coming from chattel slavery, 1865 and beyond, from 1865 to 1965, there was the separate but equal Jim Crow movement. This movement, it's disingenuous to call it a movement. It was really tyranny. You had a set of laws, a set of practices put in place to ensure that the newly freed slaves will be subjugated. And once that became the case, they then reinforced those laws with the criminal justice system. And that's when they created vagrancy laws and things like that. And although the Constitution was ratified with the 13th and 14th Amendment, they expressed distinctly that you can't be a slave unless you violate the law and is convicted of violating the law. Then at that point, your rights can be deprived of you. So now if you have millions of people, because I believe at the time of 1865, I think it was 2 million newly freed slaves, and please fact check me on that number if I'm wrong, but you had approximately 2 million newly freed slaves who are now freedmen, and that was the labor force of the South. So with that being said, how can we stabilize and maintain our economy having to endure such a blow like that after the Civil War? Now, Cheryl, is to create the connection. How do we go from that to where we are now? Well, because we had this newfound freedom, it was very important as a community that we remain close-knit on every level. The separate but equal distinction forced us to have to rely on one another, to strengthen one another, to build the institutions that will ultimately lead to our overall welfare as a community, despite being subjected to the tyranny that is Jim Crow, despite being subjected to the terrorism that was separate but equal in Jim Crow. And in spite of that, you saw collective working responsibility. You saw cooperative economics being implemented within our communities. So during times of segregation, there was Black infrastructure. There was Black resources within the community. There was all those institutions that Umar speak of that hip hop wasn't able to create. I think the true question is, what happened between 1965 and now? How did we go from having some semblance of the economic infrastructure that he's referring to as a community? I'm talking about Black people. We most notably know about Black Wall Street, but there was literally tens, close to hundreds of different pockets of the Black populace throughout the country, and specifically the South, where there was thriving economic existence. there was thriving resources, there was thriving institutions, and we only had to deal with white people out of necessity because that's what they created with the Jim Crow laws. So now we building our own ecosystems, and we have wealth in a way that we didn't before. And from afar, those white people would see that and they got jealous. And that's why you hear about what they did the first time bombs was dropped from an airplane onto the populace in this country was on Black Wall Street. So when you hear about stuff like that, when you hear about Rosewood, a town in North Florida, when you hear about those stories, you know that every effort that we made to insulate ourselves from everybody else was always met with the tyranny and the terrorism of the prejudice and racism of the Jim Crow era laws in Jim Crow South. Fast forward to today. After desegregation, what our leaders of the time was really fighting for was to be integrated. What does it mean to be integrated? It means two different things become one. We were fighting for, or our leaders, our ancestors were fighting for integration. And what we didn't realize they were getting in return was assimilation. Even though a lot of different quote unquote institutions was integrated, they never integrated by name. By practice, it was more like assimilation. They never integrated. They wanted to assimilate. Assimilate means you have to be or perform like we want you to be or perform like in order to be accepted as us in our institutions. So there was the community as a whole after the Civil Rights Act ran to pockets of society that was once denied to us. And we slowly but surely over time stopped insulating ourselves within the ecosystem to build on those ideas, to make sure that we have our schools, to make sure we have our banks and our hospitals and all of those things. So now when you look at how we arrived to where we are today, you have to realize a lot of it has to do with malpractice, for lack of a better expression, on our part as a community, right? But we cannot ignore the fact that there has always been a consistent and concerted effort to thwart all of the advancements of the Black community as a whole in this country. And that's not conspiracy theory. That's not conjecture. It's enough information out there as fact to prove that this is the case. What am I talking about? Well, learn about what happened with Move in Philly. Learn about what happened with COINTELPRO and the Black Liberation Army and the Black Panther Party. Learned about how the agenda was to thwart the rise of the Black Messiah and cut the head off the proverbial snake. So all of our Black leaders, every single one of our most powerful Black leaders from 1965 to now, those people that were truly advocates for our liberation and our freedom, they were either killed, they were either sent to jail and either still exist in jail today, or if they were lucky enough, they made it unscathed. But most of them didn't. Most of them, if you were unscathed, there was chances are you was cooperating with the establishment in order to keep us subjugated and play along into their hands. So I have to give pushback, although I agree with the overall sentiment of what Dr. Umar was saying is true. Hip hop has to hold itself accountable. Black people have more wealth, affluence, and influence now than ever before. But that wealth is not consolidated within our communities like it was during the time of Jim Crow segregation. There was more pride. There was more togetherness. There was more unity because there was a collective understanding of not only our mission as a people, but who the true enemy was. Fast forward to today, there's none of that. So there's no sense of pride as a community. I'm not talking about individualism. I'm talking about as a community. There's not the sense of pride that we once had. There's not the sense of community and unity that we once had. And you saw the disintegration of the family first, They were able to successfully disintegrate the black family, which subsequently disintegrated the black community, which subsequently disintegrated the black society. So now when you look at where we exist and hip hop becoming a reflection of where we are now, hip hop is merely a reflection of that disintegration. So keep in mind, it is enough accountability to go around. We have to be honest, but we can't lie to ourselves. I'm not going to throw the baby away with the bathwater either. It's so many things that hip hop has done positively for young men who otherwise would have been victims of a system that's deliberately targeting them. I can't diminish that. But at the same time, as the old adage you've heard a million times goes, with great power comes great responsibility. We have a lot of power as a voice in hip hop, in entertainment, in athleticism, and now we have to use that, leverage that, to consolidate that and insulate our communities from all of the nonsense outside to start to build the foundational institutions that we need to thrive as a community. So, man, listen, we had a lot going on in hip hop and entertainment. So I'm going to stay right there. I'm going to stay in the theme of hip hop and entertainment. Let's talk Lil Yachty. As always, Lil Yachty been surrounded in little controversy here and there, right? And at one point he even came out, so he said himself, you know what? I'm going to just stop talking. I'm going to stop doing interviews and talking online. And clearly he was lying because he posted an episode of his podcast, which they film. It's my understanding they film it in his room at the crib. One of his good friends is the co-host with him. And then he have whomever he's going to be on the podcast with. This time, I think it was, what's the dude from Memphis that used to be with, what you call it? Man, I forgot his name. Used to be with Dolph. I'm tripping. Key Glock. So the interview is with Key Glock. At some point, they get to talking about a conversation, and Yachty didn't like his friend's position in the conversation. So Yachty started to say, hey, you're not really coming from an honest perspective, being that situations happen between us that ain't, and he just started to divulge kind of personal details without telling the exact details, but personal information about his friend. And that, of course, sparked, when the clip was released, that sparked a whole ton of debate on social media. And the overwhelming narrative is, this is why you can't trust the people that say they doing something or doing a favor for you, because they always spin the block and throw it back in your face. Yachty started talking about when his homie was down and out, living at his mom's. He went all the way back to 2015, staying at his mom's house, not working, blase blah. He basically told him, you was blessed and fortunate and privileged enough to have a friend like Yachty that was popping and got to a place where he could help. It was crazy in my opinion. One, this is my thing. Truth is truth. And I'm never going to have an objective issue with the truth. But how you treat people is the most valuable currency there is. In this instance, I just felt like that should have never been public discourse. Have your issues, talk about it off camera, even edit it out. But to have that conversation, know it's filmed, know it's recorded, know it's edited, and then put it out, that part I think was kind of egregious and wild, out of bounds on Lil Yachty part. If anybody remembers several years back, it was the clip of Kevin Hart talking to his personal trainer on the flight. And he was kind of dogging his personal trainer. And then when Kevin Hart seen it, he kind of had to spin the block and he apologized to his personal trainer. And he told him, like, that wasn't my intentions, but I could see how ugly that looked. This is definitely one of those instances where I feel like if the greatest thing that we could do for one another, I always say humility costs nothing but your ego. If Yachty is really at an emotionally mature point where he can look at that, because of what it looks like, regardless of if it's truth or not, because of what it looks like, as a man, he should be able to take a step back and at some point apologize to the homie, like, yo, I was tripping, my bad. I should have been more tactful with how I talked about certain things or brought it to light. But that was crazy. Again, I'm learning myself, everybody deserves some level of grace. That's difficult for some than others. In this case, Yachty is no exception. He do deserve some grace because we all just trying to figure it out and we all learning. But at the same time, you definitely have to be aware of how you treat people. So to kind of dog your homeboy on a national platform, on a global platform for real, and then put it out, you got to be that's irresponsible. So salute the Yachty. Hopefully, what he's able to hash it out. Hopefully, him and his homie they end up being on good terms, and there's no real falling out from that. On from Yachty, let's talk about Brittany Renner. Brittany Renner has gained a level of popularity from being an influencer, mainly always pushing the narrative on her whole shtick. Her whole thing was overt sexuality. And everything that she did, she created an entire brand centered around the way she looked and a lot of the talking points that the social media landscape want to hear or absolutely hate. And the algorithm works best when you create outrage, because outrage creates engagement, and engagement tells the algorithm, keep giving me more. And so she did an excellent job of creating outrage, because she would either talk about things that it was polarizing. So half of the people was like, she's preaching, I love everything she said, I love her freedom, I love everything she's doing. And then the other half of the people was like, man, it's so crazy. And so that polarization followed her throughout her entire existence on social media. Why am I talking about her now? Why is she in the news now? Well, out of the blue the other day, she just posted in full hijab, head wrap and all, and it just caught everybody off guard. And they was like, is this a joke? Is she cosplaying? Is this like they waiting for, because it's completely the antithesis of everything that she represented it. They like, this got to be some sort of skit or something. Then she started to talk more about this journey that she's on, and that she's found the Islamic faith and she's walking in it. And she emptied out her whole closet and she laying out all the clothes, and she was talking about how it's affected her brand deals, how she's going to manage, because she's got to do these brand commercials where her clothes is very revealing. That was her thing. So now she's kind of being a little transparent about this journey, and still, because of how polarizing she used to be and overtly sexual she used to be, the public at large is just not prepared in any capacity to believe this version of herself that she's presenting now with the full hijab and all of that. So it's creating the same polarization, ironically. You have half of the people saying, okay, you got my interest. Let me see, because this human experience is to be lived, right? You learned something, you came into new information, you want to lead a better life, right? There's an overwhelming narrative of that. And then you have the other side that's like, this whole bullshit. And so you have a lot of people that's just not going to believe her regardless. Where do I stand on it? I say this: if she do find some sort of happiness and purpose through religion, and that religion is the Islamic faith, and she's really walking in it, which objectively from afar she seems to be, more power to her. If she's not, then at some point you got to have some integrity and draw the line somewhere at what you're willing to do for likes or clicks or to manipulate the algorithm. I honestly believe it's the former. If I have to be honest about what I feel like she was just on a journey, and in that journey she came into the Islamic faith, and something spoke to her enough to convict her to say that I want to lead my life in a different direction. So she even was transparent to talk about how with the garments that she wear now, she always had a perspiration problem her whole life. And I had one of my homies actually went to Jackson State with her when she was there. So she played on the soccer team and all of that at Jackson State. But, my homie was she was just talking about how, she always sweat like really bad. And one of the problems that she have now that she's in garment and hijab head to toe, I'm sweating like crazy and I don't know what to do about it. So little things like that, just letting the world into that level of vulnerability in her journey. I'm sure she knew she's not dumb. I'm sure she knew she would be subject to a world of criticism. I'm sure she knew that people was going to have and feel a type of way. But if it's really her journey and this is really what she believe in, then that's what it is. So I'm not gonna knock her for finding happiness and finding clarity and finding purpose through her walk and through her endeavor. To each his own. At the end of the day, as I said previously, you know what always helps these types of situations? If people just mind their business. And I still stand on that. Mind your business. Listen, I almost forgot before, because we gonna end. I gotta talk about my man Tyrese. Last time I was clowning him a little bit because he had on the little, the national anthem drum is crazy. You gotta admit, I ain't tripping. The whole, he was in full Daniel Day-Lewis. He was method auditioning. I mean, my man ain't even got the role yet. Full Marvin Gaye outfit, right? And I had to give him some bars for that. But the interview, literally, he just had the interview with the Breakfast Club, and it was so many good points, good talking points. So I just want to talk about that because he really talked about vulnerability. We all know at this point Tyrese be crying, but he talked about vulnerability in a way that was palpable to everybody. And I've seen the narrative go from him being like ridiculed to now people really having compassion and saying, oh no, this ain't just Tyrese tripping. This is a man that is being vulnerable with the emotions that he feels. So I do want to talk about that. But before I get to that, I got to talk about my man Tank. He wildin'. I say this respectfully. To say Chris Brown is better than Michael Jackson is crazy. That's just something that I'm not in any position to accept under any circumstances. Is Chris Brown supremely talented? Absolutely. But Chris Brown has never made grown men faint. Until you at the status where I'm talking about grown ass, bill paying, job working, tax paying men is losing consciousness. It's no way you're going to put Chris Brown over Michael Jackson, yo. Michael Jackson was just different. And obviously I wasn't born in the times to see, prime thriller Michael Jackson, right? So everything I got to watch, I got to go back and check it out. But all of the stories that you hear, everything that you see, if the celebrity of Michael Jackson existed during the fanfare of today, social media, etc., you would have to take Chris Brown, Michael Jackson. I mean, you had to take Chris Brown, Beyonce, what's the K-pop dudes, One Direction. You would have to take all of their fan bases and wrap them up into one to equal the type of craze that Michael Jackson. My man will pop up and stand in one spot and don't even say nothing. Like no words. And just look. Is losing their fucking mind. We might gotta bleep that out again because I told you I'm trying to keep it as clean as possible. But is Michael Jackson make me curse? I don't think y'all understand his celebrity. I don't think y'all understand that man different. Salute to Chris Brown. Chris Brown is a supremely talented artist. He can sing, he can dance, all of that good stuff. But it's a reason why Michael Jackson is Michael Jackson. So I don't want there to ever be any confusion. So Tank, I feel you. I know Chris Brown is the little homie. I know you is OG. But whatever it is that you smoking is good. But you need to put it down. because it's affecting your judgment. So, Tank, I feel you, my G, but I'm going to pray for you and send your love to your homie Tyrese because he need it right now. Tyrese was recently on the Breakfast Club. He did an interview. He's a fan favorite on the Breakfast Club. Usually something outlandish or momentous happen when he go on the Breakfast Club. So he's on the Mount Rushmore Breakfast Club interviews. I don't think he's above the Ray J interview. Ray J is like number one on the Mount Rushmore because that kind of put Breakfast Club on the map. But Tyrese interviews is definitely on the Mount Rushmore. But in it, he was extremely vulnerable. And that's the topic of conversation. We're going to pivot a little bit to take a more serious undertone. He's somebody who's experienced a lot. And all of us are on this human journey. And all of us are on this human experience. And some of us fare well than others. Some of us handle circumstances better than others. Some of us have more adversity than others. Nonetheless, I think everybody need to have compassion and understanding for everybody that's on this human journey. Tyrese is no exception. He talked about the need for compassion for men who go through traumatic experiences like a divorce. His divorce, as the more and more he talk about it, he's still devastated, still heartbroken by it. It was somebody that he thought was pure in their love, in their intentions with him, and now he don't feel that way. He feel that everything she represented to him was a lie. And obviously I'm not in their relationship, so I don't know the full dynamics. I only could speak on the conversations and narratives that he kind of spoke on and touched on. Recently, she was in a video on live on Instagram and one of the social media platforms where she was just saying, listen, don't worry about your past. I'm not thinking about my past. It was kind of a lot of subliminal jabs, obviously, at Tyrese. But he did make it public that she's seeking $40,000 a month in child support after she's already been granted $20,000. He's in the process of appealing because he did have a prenuptial agreement in place to protect himself and his assets that she signed off on. So it's a whole lot of controversy, a whole lot of back and forth. But what's important, I think one of the most important things about the conversation that he had on the Breakfast Club is his willingness to be vulnerable unapologetically and to say, yes, I'm a man. Yes, I'm crying. Yes, I'm emotional. Yes, this is a tough time for me. Why don't men, the question I ask is, why don't men be more emotional? Why don't men allow themselves to feel a lot of the emotions that they go through when they're going through it? And we heard all of the narratives around it. Society, in many ways, punish and penalize men for that level of vulnerability, especially black men. And I'm going to speak to black men because that's who I am and that's what I represent. It's tough for us to be everything that we need to be for our families and our households, and then we go out in a professional realm, in a professional setting, and be everything that we need to be in that professional setting and still maintain a level of awareness or a level of emotional intelligence through it all. So it's tough to be vulnerable enough to want to cry, especially in around people. It's one thing I encourage everybody to have their solitude and their solace and go into their closets or go into their rooms and have that moment to feel the emotions that you want to feel. But when you talk about showing that vulnerability to somebody, that's where you have the struggle as a man, because I can't, under no circumstances can I appear to be, and I put emphasis on appear to be, weak. I'm not saying that crying makes you weak. I'm saying it creates the appearance of, and that appearance creates perspective for the people that you love, for the people that you interact with. And if you're not in alignment, if the people that you with don't have your best intentions at heart, if the people that you with don't have that care and consideration, they will certainly use that perceived vulnerability against you. We see it time and time again. So more men would cry especially around their loved ones, around siblings or parents or significant others, if they truly didn't feel like it would in some way, shape, or form be used against them. So that's a tough narrative. That's a tough thing to deal with. So I have to tip my hat to Tyrese because he's willing to be vulnerable on the world stage and say, this is where I am. This is what I'm going through, and this is how I feel unapologetically. And that takes a level of strength that not many of us as black men possess. So I have to salute and I have to tip my hat to him. What he's going through, adversity is gonna refine you. Adversity is gonna you'll always come out on the other side of adversity better. And it's difficult to see that while you in it, but as you go through it, it puts you in a position where it creates the callus. One thing that I learned about the human body, to give you a metaphor, to protect itself, it will form a callus, and that callus is a hard, rough, rugged exterior or rugged coating, but that callus is to prepare whatever that body part is to endure whatever it is it have to go through. Much like the callus being a metaphor, when you going through life, there is an emotional callus that builds up to protect you, to be able to endure whatever it is that you have to go through. And so sometimes life is seemingly insurmountable. The odds that's against us is seemingly insurmountable. But when we always get on the other side of it, we realize that we had and we were equipped with the strength all along. So Tyrese is writing his story. I continue to wish you success in all of your endeavors. Hold your head up, champ. Remain focused. Keep your heart pure. Don't take that pain that you feel out on the people that you interact with moving forward, because that's a tough thing to do. One of the biggest mistakes we make is bleed on the people that don't cut us. So try to take that as you move forward and build yourself and continue to grow and be the man that your family needs you to be, that your kids need you to be. Last but certainly not least, speaking of kids, we're going to keep it on the theme of parenting and black manhood and masculinity and vulnerability and all of those things. I also got to give a shout out to ASAP Rocky. Recently came across an interview that he did where he was talking about the joys of parenting and some of the perspectives on parenting. And he shared a moment where he was just saying, you know, he and Rihanna is doing everything they can to create the greatest sense of normalcy in the lives of their children. They don't want them to be raised as, you know, entitled brats, for lack of a better expression. He wants them to be so humble and down to earth. So he just, you know, he and Rihanna is very intentional about their interaction with their children and those lessons and that tutelage that they want to give to their children. So parenthood is a joy. I am a father myself, and to me, being a father is the greatest gift that I've ever experienced in my life. I recently had one of my best friends, you know, he has a child now, and, you know, he was texting me and he was like, I didn't know, I thought I knew what love was. And I told him this. I told him, I said, listen, you think you know what love is until you have a child, and then you realize you had no clue at all. And he was just having that conversation with me when his little one, you know, was came into this realm, and he was just like, man, I've never fell in love so quick. I've never experienced anything like this, and it's just so much joy. So parenthood and being a father is an extreme gift. It's a privilege. I truly look at it as a privilege. So to see ASAP Rocky be vulnerable and talk about his journey as a father and how active he is and will continue to be, and the presence and the dynamic that he and Rihanna is trying to create, it deserves all the flowers in the world. So ASAP, Rihanna, I tip my hat to you. And to all, let me open it up to all black parents out there, to all parents out there, I tip my hat to you, because it is a great responsibility. We are responsible for the next generation. To all the parents out there, I have to tip my hat to you and give you your flowers. Sometimes we feel like being a parent is a thankless job. Sometimes we feel like being a parent can be overwhelming or demanding or whatever adjective that you want to put on it. But I always say, man, the child never asked to be here. So once we take that grown folk step and we want to be adults and do what adults do, and we take that grown folk step and we usher a child into this world, it is our responsibility to create an environment conducive to the overall welfare of that child. And that's going to look different for everybody, but nonetheless, the premise is very simple. Ensure the welfare, the health, and happiness of that child, because it's the responsibility that we agreed to take on, that we signed up for. And that's it. And my goal is to be able to create that environment for him, for my son, so he can actualize himself and lead the life that he want to lead. So to ASAP Rocky, I'm sure he's doing the same. It was such a joy to see him talk about it. And he was even showing the interviewer a video of him and his son in Harlem walking the streets. And that's what it's about, man. That's what it's about. So thank you for rocking with me. Definitely. I can't say it enough. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. This is The World According to K. Nellz. I appreciate your time. Thank you for rocking with me. The laws of thermodynamics say energy can neither be created nor destroyed, but transferred. That means if you need good energy, guess what? I got it. And if you got good energy, guess what? I need it. Always remember to master the room. Appreciate you.
I say get down when I say you get down. I say get down when I say you get down. I say get down when I say you get down. I say get down when I say you get down.